All right, so we'll go ahead and call the policy portion of this evening to order. Attendance will be noted. And we will move on to section 2, which is our review cycle. Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Ms. White. This evening we have 8 policies that we have reviewed as part of the review cycle policies. In reviewing these policies, in addition to the PA school code and laws and regulations for the state of Pennsylvania, there's no recommended changes for these policies.
Are there any comments or questions? All right, good stuff. With that, we'll move on to section 3. That's the PNN recommendations. Dr. Nicholson, are you good to take the first there?
Absolutely. Good evening and thank you. The first policy for consideration here is policy 122, extracurricular activities. In looking at the last policy meeting in November, there was quite a bit of conversation about this. It's noted that there was some updates in the PNN in August, further updated in November. For the purposes this evening, the November update included adding some content regarding what curriculum-related student groups are, defining curriculum-related student groups, which was a large bit of the conversation in November, and then removal of the reference to the Equal Access Act. So these revisions, I believe, address quite a few of the conversations that were held in November, and that kind of ends the update on 122. The recommended revisions have been incorporated into what you see this evening.
Are there any comments or questions about that?
So the only question I have about this is we had some discussion previously about co-curricular versus extracurricular, and we were striking the word co-curricular, and I'm not sure that I ever understood what the rationale was for. I don't know why we had co-curricular versus extracurricular. My understanding was that the district always called our programming the co-curriculars to acknowledge the value of those as an inherent component of the overall educational experience as opposed to just an extra. So I'm just curious why we're striking co-curricular and calling it extracurricular.
So I think we did talk about that internally, and I think because the policy sticks with extracurriculars, and that's their heading in the PNN, that we were going to go with that. But you're right, in our agreement, we currently reference the positions as co-curricular. We also talked about, Dr. Nicholson and I, that extracurricular activities occur outside the school day and are not connected to the curriculum in any way. There are times when we do refer to some of our activities as co-curricular because they are connected to some of the learning that our students experience. The examples we talked about were music. So a co-curricular activity could be band or orchestra. There are activities that occur outside the school day but contribute to the learning and a grade a student might earn in a particular course.
So with that understanding, can you help me understand why the decision was made to eliminate the word co-curricular?
I would say that we probably need to rethink it. We were following the PNN, but also at the same time having that conversation. So I think that administration is certainly open to keeping that phrase co-curricular in there. I don't know that we have a healthy delineation that's in place all the time. I'm not sure we're accurate about that in our school setting. We probably could be more accurate about it. But we were following the PNN. In reality, though, I think we referenced some things as co-curricular, so we can add it back in. I mean,
right.
there's no opposition to that.
Dr. Russell? correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't extracurricular be a broader term that would encompass things that would be co-curricular? And for a particular student, the exact same activity could either be extra or co-curricular, depending on what their courses are.
That's true for any of our music programs as well. I mean, there are students that are involved in extracurricular music programs that are not in the music department proper for class. That is accurate.
Correct, and therefore the words extracurricular would encompass both categories.
But I think to Mrs. Lofton's point, and I don't want to speak for you, but my impression is that you feel as though it detracts from the quality or intention of those programs.
Right, to me, it's more of a philosophical statement about the importance to which we subscribe to the after-school activities that we provide to our students. So to me, it's more of a philosophical point than a hair-splitting point, which I know it might sound like I'm splitting hairs here, but to me, saying that this is really important to the overall well-being of our students, we could say all of our athletics linked to gym class. We could say all of anything, links that in which you might be writing something links to your English class. I mean, I can go into 100 different logical ways of putting things together, but ultimately, to me, it's a philosophical statement that this is just as important for students to be active and engaged somehow outside of the regular classroom that is just as important to their overall education. And so to me, it's a philosophical point rather than a hair-splitting point. So, if the board feels differently or if, legally there's a reason to use the extracurricular term, it's not a hill I'll die on, but I just wanted to raise the point.
I mean, I personally wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment of that. But again, I didn't feel strongly enough to make a point of it one way or the other because I did feel like it was an umbrella term. So I actually am fine keeping it or getting rid of it. I don't know how Dr. Weston feels.
I really don't have strong feelings either way.
But I agree with Judy.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Lofton's makes
Yeah, no,
a completely
I
valuable
don't think,
point.
I absolutely agree that these programs are important. The terminology that we use to describe them, extracurricular or co-curricular, one term or the other or both, I have no strong feeling about that. It's, as you say, an umbrella term.
When I first came to this district, I'd never heard the term co-curricular before, and I said, what on earth? Why? I've never heard it called that. And that was explained to me as the rationale for that, and I liked it, and so it's, I guess, something I still hold dear. But it's something I can let go of, too.
Yeah, personally, I think that the term extracurricular in the umbrella form that it is works well for the policy, and I don't believe that adding co-curricular, while I understand the philosophical difference of it, I don't believe in this policy is the place that is the place to address that. So I'm fine with the version that we have here.
Okay. But in the spirit of what the intention is, if we could also add something in the purpose to make note of the fact there's some language stricken. What are your thoughts about adding some of the purpose language back? Or extracurricular activities to include I don't know.
Well, that's a great point, and I guess that goes back to was there a rationale for why those first two paragraphs of purpose were stricken?
Probably was just to condense and
maybe the PNN suggested it. Honestly, I don't know that administration feels strongly. I mean, happy to recognize and honor that curricular side of those activities within extracurricular. We don't feel strongly. Like I said, we haven't necessarily been detail-oriented around delineating consistently.
I mean, and now that I'm looking at it again, I don't know that in practice changing that putting that back in is going to change anything that we do in practice either, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
that-
think that our intent is reflected in how we conduct business.
So would you like to see revisions, Mrs. Lofton, or are you okay leaving it as is?
I guess I'm okay with it.
Point noted on the record, though. All right, very good. Anything else on this one? All right. And then it looks like 123, Dr. Russell and Dr. Nicholson are going to tag team.
Yeah, I can jump in. Thank you, President White. So again, in November, there was robust conversation about the interscholastic activities, policy 123. In response to the questions and the comments in November, administration worked to remove the language indicating the district's responsibility under the NIL, the name, image, and likeness. So that's been removed to reflect a lot of the concern and the questions from November. Otherwise, it stayed the same.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions on that one? All right, excellent. Next up.
All right, next up is 218.1 weapons. This policy has been updated to comply with the PA School Code. So PA School Code was recently changed. This is not a substantive change in the way that the district responds to weapons on school property, but it does mandate that there is notification made to the school community within 24 hours when a weapon is found on school property. So this is something that we've looked at, we've worked through. The notification is something that we're looking to solidify through this policy in response to the change. But again, there's really not a large or substantive change in the way that the district will provide communication when this occurs.
Are there questions associated with this?
No, I'm good.
I'm sorry?
He said he's good.
Okay, good.
Ms. Lofton, good.
Bob. If I may, I just wanted to add more explicitly to some of what Dr. Nicholson just offered, that I had shared with the board, because of the new legislation, I was planning a communication with our community so that they are made aware explicitly of the requirements on the part of school districts. That is scheduled to come out this Wednesday as part of a newsletter. So we will inform them that we will be more detailed based on this legislation. It was implemented January 5th. We got some advice from the state that first week back, and I also wanted to have this conversation with the policy committee, just in the event there were some questions. So we'll get that out this week so that our community will be aware, and we will uphold that aspect, that change to the legislation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Weaver, you're going to cover 610, 11, and 26.
Yes, thank you, Ms. White. Very quickly, every year the state establishes new procurement guidelines associated with values and our procurement methods. They have done so. So as of January 1st, 2026, our new guideline figures are 24,500 and 13,200. This is standard issue. Nothing else changes in the policies, and it is an annual thing that we go through as a process once the state establishes those rates. So I would move all three forward with those simple changes.
Any question or objection to that? Okay. So we're at 611, Mr. Weaver.
Same for 611?
Same for 611, and,
Yes.
okay, got it.
And
Okay,
same for 626?
no problem.
Yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, Mr. Nicholson, Dr. Nicholson, rather, you are back up with 805.
All right, thank you, President White. And likewise, I'll package 805, 805.1, 805.2 together. These are, again, recent changes made within school code. The first one, 805, there is no change to the policy. There is a change to the attachment for safe-to-say procedures that outlines that the district must respond within 48 hours of a life safety tip where there's threat of harm to oneself or another person, and 30 days on a non-life safety tip. Again, not a change in practice, but a change in school code. 805.1 is mandating that we a procedure for addressing timely threat assessment with our local municipal police departments. And then finally, school security personnel, 805.2, expands and updates the responsibilities of Chief Miller and the school safety and security coordinator. I have had the occasion to speak with Chief Miller about all three of these. He was well aware of these through both PCCD and the Department of Education and does not see any issues with the policies or our ability to comply with what the state is recommending.
Comments or questions around that? All right, seeing none. That ends section 3, and we will move on to section 4, which is our local policies review. 2 items that Dr. Brussel has brought forward. One is returning, and then the first, however, is class size, policy 126.
Thank you, Ms. White. And we have been talking about class sizes and whether or not the current recommended ranges in class size are most appropriate. And we were prompted to think about these class size ranges earlier in the year when we observed class sizes in 5th grade that could potentially have reached 27 students. And according to our policy, that falls within what we refer to as the recommended range. However, in reality, we don't believe that's in the interest of students or our staff. And we did have a board walkthrough where we tried to showcase some of what our classrooms look like today. And in addition to some of the physical features of our classrooms, our students and their size as 5th graders, all of the stuff that is a part of their learning experiences, et cetera. So I'm coming to you with a suggestion for reconsideration for these class size ranges. And again, they're not hard and fast, and administration and our staff recognizes that. However, we do believe we can more effectively serve the interests of our students and our staff by shifting that 5th and 6th grade range to 22 to 25, as well as 7th and 8th grades 24 to 27 from where they existed, and you can see how they've changed. We would eliminate K+ and the statements there around special programs and K+ as an example, because that no longer exists. We have full day kindergarten now. So with that, K+ exited.
Are there any comments or questions around this? Go ahead, Mrs. Lofton.
My question is, as it applies to the middle school, is this looking at a homeroom or ELA class size, and in what way does that impact, when students are grouped by ability for mathematics or, for various different types of differentiated instruction? So, I wouldn't want a student to not be able to participate in a program that was at the right level for them due to a class size consideration. So just how is this applied at the middle school level?
So that's a great question, because we have math classes at the middle level that are upwards of 30 students. If they're the accelerated math class, we try to keep the other classes closer to that 25 number when we can. Some are a little higher, some are a little bit lower. It has not stopped us. Where we really come to the board and consider asking for another teacher is when we see those homeroom sections which drive the academic sections on a team at the middle level to have numbers similar, except in the case of when we accelerate or we have a co-taught class. With the cases of acceleration, we sometimes sacrifice that upper end and we push on it a little bit more to accommodate our students. That's not always in the interest of students. With co-taught, we sometimes err on the lower end of the range and even push on that more so that we can most effectively meet the needs of our students. So we don't avoid accelerating a student, to answer your question more directly. We do not avoid accelerating a student based on the class sizes.
Okay.
We provide what we believe is a setting that can support outcomes.
So this is based on the homeroom class sizes then?
Typically, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Correct me if I'm right, basically it's pushing the definition for the gen ed population, especially in the middle school. And from my own personal experience on that, when these limits are pushed in the accelerated portions of the middle school, it's typically not a driver of any lowering of academic standards or the ease of, these are the children that are best able to adapt to that higher level. And I think part of the fluidity of the policy allows for this, and I'm fully in support of the new numbers, especially when it comes to, I think most of us will remember just about every August or so, we would be getting emails concerning the pushing the upper limits of the range of the policy for especially fifth grade. I think that this addresses that in that by tightening up the range that's especially in the fifth grade means that we're going to look at that and the public will see that we now have lowered this, and I think that they would be supportive of that because it supports a lower class size, especially for the fifth and lower.
So, go ahead, Dr. Russell.
The only thing I was going to offer in addition is that philosophically as a district, we have aimed for the lowest class sizes in the youngest grades because that's what research indicates is most effective. It actually, according to the research, takes a pretty significant shift to impact outcomes. I mean, almost 10 students. Now, as a teacher, that's not what we feel when we're in front of those students and we realize those differences. 25 is really different from 20, especially at the middle level. So we recognize that. Somewhere in all of this, though, we have to strike the right balance with fiscal responsibility, with resources, with respect to resources, as well as the experiences and outcomes we intend for our students. So we have landed here with that thinking and some feedback from some middle-level administration.
So I know that we had talked about this sort of on the cusp of it for a little bit in a bunch of different manners of conversation, especially last year with the conversations that we had about realignment. And so I guess my first question is, when we looked to these suggested ranges, 22 to 25 and 24 to 27, were those just simply a shift down, or was there a conversation happening at the building level?
So I spoke to middle school administration. So really, it was an administrative recommendation, if that's what you're asking.
But like a district office administrative recommendation, or you
middle-level
had
principals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess my only feedback point with this is, like you said, obviously you have to strike a balance between practicality as well as, what we would all want in a fantasy theory of how small a class size could be. But I guess my feedback about the ranges, the fifth and sixth graders are not in the same building. Fifth graders are in brick and mortar buildings with third and fourth graders, so the classrooms are literally the same size. So I don't know that I feel, I know that it's just 2 students, but 2 students makes a big difference, truly, in a fifth grade classroom. I would feel better about the adjusted ranges if fifth was still grouped with 3 and 4, personally.
So you would like to see 20 to 23 in fifth grade, maybe sixth grade is different.
So the largest bodies in that building could potentially, they're still in the same size classrooms. They're in the same buildings with third and fourth graders.
They are, currently. Yeah.
So
They
then
are.
would you be essentially asking for sixth grade to have its own range?
I mean,
Because
I think that sixth grade is a pivotal year. I think that it's a very big transition year. I think that the learning in sixth grade is sort of a hybrid between a seventh and eighth grade experience and an elementary experience. So I don't see that there's anything wrong with sixth grade having its own range. I don't want to just throw sixth grade to 24 to 27. Truly, I would be happier if it was 22 to 25 for 6, 7, 8,
Okay.
and then 20 to 23 for 3, 4, 5, and then just eliminate the 27 cap altogether. But, I mean, I realize that there's some compromise. I don't feel comfortable with fifth graders being in the same building, but just throwing 2 more students potentially in those classrooms. 25 fifth graders in a classroom is a lot of kids. It's very many.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I know in my experience, a couple extra people really can make a very big difference in the experience.
Especially depending on the cohort makeup, especially what services happen to be pushing in for individual children. It just turns into just a lot of
Right.
people.
Because once you're having, if there's also 2 one-on-ones and then someone's coming in, and it's physically, it can be very difficult. But also just the, the experience, the individualized, the ability to differentiate and individualize experiences, I think it's,
Well, you run out of room for furniture at a certain point. You have 25 desks, but then there's no room for small group instruction. There's just a lot of different variables. I know I don't want to put Ms. Benza on the spot, but I just feel very strongly about keeping our elementary buildings capped at a certain
right.
number.
And I
So,
mean-
correct me if I'm wrong, essentially what you're saying is you want to take the current minimum and have that be the maximum, because it's at 23.
Well, third and fourth, the suggested rate is 20 to 23. I'm just
No,
proposing that I would
and I'm
feel
not
more
arguing against it, I'm just as a definitional point, because the current minimum at grades 5 and 6 is 23, and if we were to
Well, I mean,
make
you're
the
afraid-
shift
you're-
that you're
yep.
suggesting, it would be, the minimum would become the maximum at 23.
if you want to phrase it that way. I mean, you could phrase it 3 different ways.
No, I
Yes,
do-
you're phrasing it that way. I'm phrasing it that I would like fifth grade to match third and fourth.
So,
Yeah, it's
just
the
to-
same difference, right?
Yes, just to build upon, I think what Mr. Liggett is communicating, so we would shift this table based on the latest conversation. We would shift the table to represent grades 3 through 5 at 20 to 23, grades 6 through 8 at 22 to 25 students. I think that's what I'm hearing from those of you that have spoken out.
Just to add in some teacher perspective here. At the middle level, they are going through a lot of changes, and we don't get the same experience that they get in elementary school. We have them for about 45 minutes, so we can't do the stations and the small group and all of that they get all day to do. We can do it in a very small amount of time. So given the amount of student need that we are seeing come through our classes, and we are not co-taught in all of our major subjects, so we don't have the amount of support. We may have a lot of need and a lot of mixed ability. So when we get a class of 25, 26, 27, and we have students on very different levels, as a teacher, it can be very hard to feel like you are meeting the needs of all of your students every day. And it's not for lack of trying, and it's not for lack of wanting to, but the smaller the class size, the better we are able to reach each student at where they need to be. And so, and there's definitely, different schools, different discrepancies. We're not evenly split between the buildings. So I would say smaller is always better for us, because the current setup we have and the level of support that we get, the smaller the class sizes, the better we can build those relationships, the better our test scores are going to be, and just the more engagement we can bring to our kids. We are seeing so much variability in their levels coming to us that when I have 27 kids in a room versus my class of 20, it is a world of difference. Even 20 to 24 is a world of difference in what I can get them to achieve in a year.
So I appreciate your advocacy about that. And so that's part of, the middle level is part of the reason that I've really belabored class sizes being discussed. Obviously, there is a small recommendation of a shift down. I realize that it's one body, and I appreciate that piece of it. I think the other piece of this, the other half of the coin you mentioned was the range of abilities, and I think that really is the next part of the conversation, because that's also something that I've continued to bring up in terms of leveling not only our math classes, but also our ELA classes at the middle level, because I think that it does a disservice to everyone, teacher included, when you have to teach to very far ends of a spectrum. And when we're talking about test scores and we're talking about looking for improvement, you're not really able to do that. And this board acknowledges that. There's no question. I think we all universally acknowledge the struggle there. But at the same time, it's a multifaceted thing, right? It's not just that, like you said, the buildings are not split evenly. There's like all of these different aspects. But I felt like this would be like a step forward, like a tiptoe forward in the right direction. Dr. Weston, do you have something?
Just if we were to shift the table around like you're suggesting, have class from 3 to 5 be the 20 to 23 students, and then 6 and 7 and 8 would be what, 22 to 25? Do we have the resource and the personnel to accommodate that?
Well, I'll need to follow up with you on that. If we actually look at it across the district with projections, and we'll see that later tonight in the board meeting, and I can eyeball it relative to these ranges and give you a better sense. And if I'm not able to address that tonight specifically, I'll do that in the memo. I'll give you a sense of what it would mean in terms of personnel, because right now, we're projecting out how many personnel we could actually do without because of declining enrollment. And I shared this with the high school today in our faculty meeting after school. That may change, that may shift a bit with these adjusted class size ranges. Now, that's primarily at the middle level and elementary. At the high school, there's a different
Metro.
Yep. Different measure.
And these are the recommended class sizes, right? So if there's a cohort that has,
Right.
it can go.
Which is helpful, actually,
Yeah.
that you give us a little bit of wiggle room there. But certainly, you can see the principals that are here, they're in favor of small class sizes. We all are.
Yeah.
We work to try and strike that balance, and having been teachers ourselves, we can relate to the experiences and the differences those numbers, what they feel like, and how they impact what you're trying to do for all students. So, absolutely.
I mean, and if collectively we feel as though, you know, Dr. Russell, you looking at whether or not it can be achieved, I think is an important part of it, right? But collectively, if we know we have, you know, a population of X, and it doesn't necessarily match up building-wise, I feel like there are other avenues to explore if our end game is truly to keep class sizes and educational experiences whole, positive,
With strong outcomes.
correct, positive with strong outcomes. I wanted to repeat that because your
Agreed.
mic was off, right? Okay, so good, positive with
Yes.
strong outcomes. Good. All right.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Moran.
go ahead, Mr. Moran.
And just look at this policy, may we give consideration to changing the term from regular education to general education? And if not with this policy, maybe just a further discussion about moving in that direction?
I think that's actually a really great recommendation, and I think that may have just been an oversight to not updating the language. Is that? I'm comfortable with that.
Me too. I appreciate
That's preferred, yes, thank you for suggesting that. That's actually, that's huge. Okay, so where did we land? Did we land eliminating that last tier of 24 to 27 and moving 5 to 4 and 3, and then 7 and 8 to 6.
I would support that. I mean, we do have the language in here right before the grid that says that these are goals to strive for. So, once it gets to summertime and you're looking at the classroom breakdown and, there's an opportunity, we're not held to the standard, but we're setting this forth as the goal that we're aiming for. So,
And we're acknowledging that we're wanting to move
Right.
in that direction.
I mean, on a state level, there's it's my understanding that there's no actual classroom cap.
Which is
So
wild.
it's really up to us to establish guidelines, and then, we could approve something and everything fits, and 20 new families move into the district in
We can
September, and,
reassess at
it's
that time.
just, there's always flexibility, but I think, I do want to make sure that it is actually logistically feasible. So that's a great point from Dr. Weston.
And maybe we could talk about it at education this month, just as it relates to that piece of it.
And on that note, we had talked about incorporating or revisiting that facilities conversation and being resourceful as part of Education Committee of the Whole. It is an agenda item on this Thursday's meeting. So we'll talk about, I think what I have there is enrollments, projections, and staffing. So we'll talk about facilities too and how they fit in this picture. And are we being as resourceful as we can be in that regard as well?
So I guess with that said, does the committee feel okay shifting the grade alignments with the class sizes tonight? Or would you like to hold and then wait until after we have the conversation at education?
Well, I don't think it's going to impact anything until summertime anyway,
agree,
right?
yeah.
So I don't see any reason to move it forward. I think it doesn't hurt to gather more information.
You want to wait and we'll gather more information. We can bring it back
Just to-
next month.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I can go either way on that. I think we could do it tonight, and because it's a flexible range anyhow.
Right. It sets an intention.
Yeah, because, how much extra information are we going to gather about this? The actual moving of the ranges, even
One or two.
with the way
Yeah.
that you're talking about, it's not a significant move. I doubt it would have staffing consequences. Yes, there's certification differences between, 6 and 7, but we're talking about single digits in that range. It takes 2 months if we go through the regular process to get this policy through. I would have no issue with moving this in with the new ranges tonight.
I agree, and I think it sets an intention personally, but I defer.
I could go either way.
Okay.
Again, it's an intention. I think our administration is hearing this as an intention and can incorporate that into their planning. Does it help you either way to move it forward now versus just knowing that this is what we're looking towards?
Yeah, Mrs. Venza, what would you like to share?
There we go. More information is always helpful when we're, looking ahead and scheduling and planning. So it does help to know sooner than later, but how much time, I don't know if it really impacts.
I think it's less about the boards feeling that they support the change and more about just making sure that there's enough other things to cover the mandate. Enough other things, enough people, enough resources.
Yeah, I have the chart in the superintendent's report tonight. I don't know that we want to dive into that in this setting. I'm certainly able to pull that up if the committee would like that. Otherwise, I think if we revisit it again in February as part of the policy committee, we can start to act on it if it's going to move to first reading. Having more information about the projections and what they will play out to look like moving things forward. Again, like Mrs. Lofton said, these are targets, and we know to aim for them. Exactly how many staff we would not be able to avoid replacing versus need to replace is something that we're going to need more time for anyway. I mean, it's too early to tell, really.
Sure.
But we can look at the projections a little later tonight.
I mean, in terms of just
Or a
the,
long-winded answer.
the process here, we will not be voting to approve the policy as a board until March at the earliest. So if we can proceed with it now, and if something comes up in the interim, we can always pull it back and make the change.
First reading, that's correct.
That's reasonable. So that's in line with what Mr. Liggett was saying. Mr. Clowns?
I just wanted to bring up one question for the board to consider, and maybe administration. Since this policy was last revised in 2022, I think at all levels we've expanded co-teaching in the classrooms, and it says at the top under guidelines, the last sentence there, that class sizes for specialized instructional programs determined by students' IEPs are governed by state guidelines. But as we've seen co-teaching expand, that's if there's windows or caps for those classes, it's not specifically addressed in here. And I just know this many times students in co-taught classrooms have needs, and if we go with the general guidelines, those classes can be a little big to address those needs. And I don't know if, I think it has to be flexible because every school is a little different, but I wasn't sure if we wanted something about co-taught classes into the policy, recommendations or anything like that.
Personally, co-teaching is one approach to meeting the needs of our students. I would prefer not to call it out specifically and instead reference IEPs or student needs academically, socially, and emotionally, behaviorally. But that's something we can talk more about as a committee. And I will say that in my experience and conversation with principals, they make every effort to try and keep classes where students have the greatest needs at the lowest numbers. And in a co-taught setting, there are 2 teachers, not 1. So that's also a consideration that is made. Students with the greatest needs get 2 teachers often and fewer students. Now, it's not necessarily 20 to 23 students. It may be more than that, but that is an effort, a consistent effort on the part of our administration. We have a special education supervisor here. We have a middle school principal. So they can certainly speak to that, but that has been the effort on the part of administration. I think it would be very difficult. I would just recommend against calling out co-taught settings
So
specifically.
So I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cleland, are you wondering that if there's not language to, for lack of a better term, protect class size of a co-taught classroom, that having 2 teachers there would legitimize making it a larger class? Is that what you're getting at, or?
No, not necessarily. I just, I think that a smaller co-taught class, and regardless of the number of teachers in the room, just a smaller co-taught class enables you to have more student-to-teacher time.
Achieve the purpose of it being a co-taught class?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I agree with that. I guess I was wondering if you had concern about, oh, well, it's a co-taught class, so we can put 30 kids in there. I didn't know.
Because there's 2 teachers.
Correct.
I got you.
Yeah. And I
No,
don't
and
think
I
that,
think
I
most-
got it. No, yeah,
and
no.
I think most,
Everybody's frantically shaking
For
their
the
head, no.
record, we're not doing that.
Yeah, no. I just was trying to understand what the concern was in putting the language in. Was it to acknowledge co-taught classes, or was it to protect the cap of a co-taught class?
I guess to protect the cap of a co-taught class, just because I feel that when we keep the co-taught classes on the lower side, it's easier to address student need. Okay, great.
I appreciate the point, Mr. Cleland, and that is the practice. And again, I'll look to our administrators who work intimately in scheduling some of those at the secondary level, and completely agree that it is both prongs we consider. It is the fact we have the presence of a second teacher, and we attempt to keep those class sizes lower rather than higher. And I don't know that anyone disagrees. It's not always hard and fast, but it is something that is considered in scheduling.
And I would just add in that we do try to keep those co-taught classes on that lower side, as well as proportionately the number of IEPs in that classroom to be about no more than 1/3 of the class. That's the goal. So when we're looking at scheduling and talking about who benefits the most from co-teaching, we need to, we're working on prioritizing which students are the best fit for that type of model. For exactly that reason, we don't want that overloaded.
I think above 1, 2, and 3 do encompass that. That would cover that situation.
It acknowledges that those are the things that are considered. I agree.
Yeah, in looking at this in the past, I suggested a similar thing at one point of saying, you know, if we reach a certain size that we have to mandate a co-taught, and it's the practicalities of it from a policy point of view just aren't there. And I think maintaining the flexibility that we have, along with the trust that we have in administration, to appropriately
Allocate resources.
And in addition to that, that if we do change this policy in the way that we're speaking about tonight, it shows a clear intent of the board to lower the class sizes.
Overall.
Yeah, exactly. So I think from just a philosophical point of view, if we were
The
to
spirit of it is.
pass this
Yep.
with the ranges that we've talked about, along with making Mr. Moran's suggestion about
General ed. Yep.
I think we're landing in a place that I'm very comfortable with.
Okay, so just to recap, we're going to move this one forward with the amendment of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, 20 to 23, and 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, 22 to 25.
Along with gen ed instead of regular ed.
Correct.
references. Yes, that's
Wonderful.
what I have. Yep,
Okay, just wanted to make sure we were all
Yep.
on the same page.
thank you.
All good? Beautiful. I knew that was going to be robust. That's excellent. All right. And again, back for another time in January in 2026, let's talk about 321.
All right, so let's talk about 321. We've had some very robust conversations about 321, and we've gone back and forth about some of the terminology here. I did seek some input from our administrative team. They were invited to share some feedback, and it was helpful. And to a comment that I received today from a committee member, what I will mention is in number 2, where we talk about the following situations are exempt from the provisions of this policy, which is something that we spent some time on in previous conversations. One example that was mentioned to me by an administrator was approved activities conducted by school-sponsored student groups such as Young Democrats or Young Republicans. We don't have those groups yet, but the principal was envisioning the what-ifs for an advisor of such groups. What I would recommend after the feedback from a committee member today is maybe we strike such as Young Democrats or Young Republicans and just stop at school-sponsored student groups, period. So that we're thinking about that. We have definitely created a greater awareness around political activities, political conversations, what that means in the school setting, and what it is we are held to as employees of the school district. So what you see in green is what we would propose this month.
With the strike-through of
Yep.
the young Republicans, young Democrats.
Yes. So I'm going to do that right now.
Okay. So the question I had with that regard was that this is a faculty-directed policy. So I was questioning whether there should be something in there about student groups. Those student groups are covered in a student-directed policy, I would think. So, but if you're clarifying this would, apply to a faculty advisor, that would allow them to participate in the conversation.
Or facilitate it. I think that's what the administrator was envisioning. The
Okay.
possibility that a teacher or an advisor could be drawn into conversation, or maybe helping to facilitate or incorporate some parameters around that there are some protections there for those individuals in those roles. And I think that was brought up too in the past. We wanted to think about individuals involved in co-curricular activities, which we have actually in number 1, those that are leading those,
Okay,
school newspaper, et cetera, for example. So yes, that was the intent.
okay.
So, for example, like the Safe Collective group that actually made recommendations to us for policy, something like, many years ago, something like that would still be allowed? Okay.
Yes, so that would be, and actually, it would be exempt from the provisions of the policy and permitted to engage in more political conversations, is basically what the policy
Okay.
language is proposing.
Okay.
Because it's connected to their efforts, yeah.
And then just to come full circle, in number 1, do we want to change co-curricular to extracurricular?
Yeah, I was thinking that as I was reading it and saying it, based on previous conversations, because I think Mr. Clellan has brought up, what about individuals that lead co-curricular activities? Maybe we need to change that to extracurricular. If the group agrees. Yes.
Matt?
We need it to be consistent.
I agree with changing it to extracurricular from co-curricular. I also support the striking the language, the such as. And part of the reason I agree with striking the such as it's in there, the policy itself is meant to address political activities. And by calling out young Democrats and young Republicans, that actually makes it more of a partisan issue rather than
Right.
political. And by removing those 2 examples, I believe that it opens up the opportunities for there, and it more clearly defines that it's political, not necessarily partisan.
Well, I think that raises an interesting point, because in my mind, the purpose of this policy is to put limitations around partisan political activity, as opposed to discussion of public policy or other types of topics. Partisan political activity, in support of a candidate or another, I think is one thing. If you spread the definition of political activity into discussions of policy, you could classify almost anything as a political discussion, and that could lead to people being hesitant to raise topics or participate in topics. I just want to see that our classrooms and our extracurricular clubs, I want to make sure that these are safe spaces for discussion. And, we're not making anybody, afraid to address a topic or participate in a discussion on a topic because they think that somebody might object to it on a political nature. Because like I say, almost anything can be cast as a political topic, and, that's just, I want to make sure that we have space for these conversations.
No, I understand your point, Dr. Weston, which is also probably part of the reason that there's actually many districts that do not have a policy 321 to essentially avoid the topic of controlling any form of speech, regardless of what the topic is, and trying to define whether something is political or partisan.
Yeah.
Which I guess that would be a valid point of conversation about whether or not we even believe that this policy is necessary.
How do you feel about whether or not it's necessary, Mr. Leggett?
Personally, I'm in favor of the language that would be here currently with the removal of the such as. I don't believe that it is so broad as to effectively restrict the freedom of speech of the staff. But I do think that it is wise to have some sort of at least statement that,
Guardrails.
yeah, that there needs to be some sort of guardrail on there.
Yep.
I understand that we could go the other way, not have the policy at all, and live in that world. I'm not sure that I'm prepared to, or that the district is prepared to live in that world.
Yeah, I mean, it's another good point. I mean, I was looking around at what other districts have. A lot of neighboring districts don't have a policy 321, and you know, they seem to manage quite well. Other districts have made their policy 321, you know, quite restrictive in the past, and you know, they're kind of working through that issue as well. I don't think it's a bad idea to have the policy. But like I say, I just want to make sure that speech in the classroom and outside the classroom is protected, and you know, this is a place to have difficult conversations, challenging conversations.
I'm curious as to, in terms of the impact of the policy, how building administration would feel about, like, would it be a relief of some, like, does having the policy add anything in terms of the functioning, to Dr. Weston's point, and fostering environments where dissent and debate is encouraged? Does this add anything to that?
I think that's a great question, and I would defer to Mr. Clellan, and you know, Dr. Fuller just walked in. At the high school level, I think is where we might encounter some of the more challenging or borderline conversations. So I would wonder, Mr. Clellan, what your view is, does this bring value to our work in creating an awareness and helping establish some parameters, or is it really unnecessary?
Your question is, does this bring value to our work, or?
An awareness, help in terms of establishing boundaries or parameters around some of the conversations that might otherwise occur?
I mean, I know for myself, teaching American literature, there are some political topics in the textbook that have to be addressed in order to understand the texts and their place in history. So I feel like this policy protects me as I'm guiding my class through those topics. I'm sure for social studies classes it covers what they're going to do. It also allows for politically motivated clubs or things like that to address what they need to address. But I think it puts those limitations on if your curriculum is not centered around that, then you shouldn't be bringing that up in class, I suppose. I suppose that's an appropriate guideline.
That's the type of feedback I was hoping. That's what I was hoping it was doing what
Yeah, and it's very specific about
the intention is, right?
during the workday. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's appropriate.
Does anyone on the committee have an issue with moving it forward with the language as presented? We can bring it back in
No,
February.
I'm actually supportive of that. 'Cause
I was just joking about February. I was just joking. Are you okay with that, Mr. Leggett?
yes, please.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Mrs.
My
Lofton?
only question is, you know, I'm looking at what is stricken here. For example, collecting campaign funds, et cetera. And I see that it was linked to, you know, our first link here, 510, and that's linked to student safety patrols. And I'm wondering if it should have been linked to a different segment of school code, and if we are losing something by not having that linkage. I'm wondering if some of the rest of this language was explicit in the code that it should have been linked to. And then my understanding is that the new language that we have from guidelines, what was that? That was from, that was from some federal legislation that's escaping me at the moment, right? And do we want to link to that language?
Which, I'm sorry, under guidelines, which number?
Under guidelines, so.
Number 4? is
Number
it?
1, no employee shall engage,
Okay.
blah, blah, blah. And then number 1. And then down to the bottom, PS 510, 24/510, talks about the school board can create safety patrols and have crossing guards and have. So I feel like we are linked to the wrong section of the code.
Yeah.
And if there's something in the code that we should be aware of. And then also, we added something. How convenient.
Yeah, I was just going to say that section 5-510 of the school code, which is cited there, provides the Board of School Directors the authority to adopt reasonable rules and regulations regarding the deportment not only of students, but of staff and the entire
Okay.
school
So
environment.
it's just
So it's
very
broad
broad.
enough. Yeah, it's broad enough.
Okay. So we would maybe want to keep that linkage somewhere else in the policy, that we can make rules about our staff? And then also, what was the federal law that this came from? I'm forgetting. Our new guideline text. That came from a federal law, and no.
Not to belabor the point, but it really doesn't matter whether we link to the law or a policy or not, because, or to another thing, because this becomes our internal policy and therefore it has its own authority as policy. So I don't think we need to worry about hunting for where the citation is for a particular topic.
Well, I disagree with that determination, because if the board chooses not to follow its own policy, then there really is no teeth to the policy. However, if there is a state or federal law that the policy is based upon, then if a community member felt that the board was not following it, then they do have some sort of recourse beyond the board. So I think it's important to say, hey, this is something that is linked to an actual law that, and that citizens have recourse if they feel that something inappropriate has happened.
Again, I don't know that there's a specific federal law prohibiting political speech, but what federal case law holds is that that type of speech is not protected.
The
during-
Hatch Act,
Okay, right.
that's what we drew this from. It was-
The Hatch Act has implications. It typically applies to federal employees, the Hatch Act. I believe it's limited to federal employees, but it's the same principle. And I mean, in federal case law, it does allow school districts to place limitations on that type of speech, or place limitations on its limited public forum to preclude that type of speech. And I can look further into this,
No,
but I
yeah,
mean,
it's
kind of.
federal, you're right.
But either way, the person's rights as defined in the federal law come from the federal law and not from the policy. So it being in the policy doesn't really matter in that sense.
No, I mean, and again, the way the PSBA policies are structured, they cite the underlying authority in their footnotes, so, and that's again, the citation of 5-510 is an appropriate citation, because it does give us or give you the authority to make reasonable rules and regulations governing the conduct of your employees during the school day.
So we just find the appropriate place to reattach that 510 in the policy, and we're basically okay.
Yeah, it is, I believe, cited at the end in the list of the table of authorities.
It is, but it refers to a section that would be stricken by the amendment.
Okay.
So we would have to move that citation to another appropriate place that's existing in the policy.
And Mr. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moran, go ahead.
Mr. Subers, it's my understanding also that when we make revisions, we then send it to PSBA and they check the citations
Yeah,
to make sure
that's
that they are
correct. Yeah.
correctly
They,
associated?
yeah, they send back a corrected table of authorities for you.
Okay, so we are 5 minutes, 6 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of those that came out for acknowledgements, as well as the rest of our board's agenda. So if you'd like, we can table this to February, or we can move this forward with the language as written.
Based on the discussion that we've had, I think it's fine to move it forward, and I would just make sure that we link the citation somewhere else in the
Okay,
policy.
noted. Anyone have any issue with that? Okay,
The only other thing I was going to add was, to your point, Mrs. Lofton, we were going to develop an admin reg to replace some of the detail in the guidelines and make sure that our staff are well aware through an admin reg that attempts to be more explicit and in layman's terms, based on their practice, what it is they need to think about or be aware of. And we were waiting, I was actually posed that question in advance of tonight. I was waiting until the language was final before we did that. Okay,
all right,
great.
okay. That being said, we will move on to Section 5, closing items. Policy meeting minutes will be available following the meeting. We have our meeting dates. Our next meeting is on February 9th, directly before our second board meeting of the month. 5.03, notice of video disclaimer. 5.04, adjournment. And if we could have 3 minutes to do a reset, we will start at 7:10. Thank you so much.
Westfall would like a copy,
A hard copy would be helpful, or to look on with Judy would be,
Okay.
Mrs. Lofton would be helpful, just in the interim. Okay, so thank you, everyone, for the grace of allowing us to start a little late. Not that any of you had a choice, but it's still appreciated. And with that, I call this business meeting to order. Attendance, Mrs. Reefer.
Ms. Bridie? Here. Mr. Liggett?
Here.
Mrs. Lofton?
Here.
Mr. McGuire? Mr. McKinney?
Here.
Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. Westfall?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. 1.04, 1.05 is I'm sorry, 1.03 and 1.04 is Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection. Okay. 1.05 is the reading of the PVSD mission statement. Welcome to you, Dr. Nicholson. Would you mind reading our mission statement this evening? Your
Absolutely.
very first meeting.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you. The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally.
Thank you so much. 1.06, approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. 1.07, approval of the minutes. We are looking to have a motion to approve the minutes for December 8th, 2025. So moved. A motion by Mr. McKinney and a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Westfall. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries. All right, that moves us to 1.08, special recognition. Dr. Russell and Mr. McKinney they will handle special recognition honors while they get ready to be set up. I will let the public know that tonight's honors will go and be extended to National Technical Honor Society, as well as our student hero and a principal author. So with that, I turn it over.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out this evening to recognize several of our students tonight. So we have 3 different groups, as Ms. White mentioned. And we will begin with our National Technical Honor Society students. And we're proud to recognize these students who have been inducted into the National Technical Honor Society as students at North Montco Technical Career Center. This distinction honors students who have demonstrated outstanding achievement in their technical programs, along with a strong commitment to scholarship, leadership, character, and service. Their induction reflects their dedication to hands-on, career-focused learning. They are models for other students to look to, and I congratulate them. We'll read through the list, and I would ask each of the students to come up and be presented with a cookie, and then we would like to take your picture after the board recognitions this evening. The cookie tends to be a big deal. Okay. So Robert Barden, Mackenzie Bryant, Julian Cano, Lucy Crotty, Nev Dusara, Jacob Echternock, Natalie Elbaja. Thank you for coming, Natalie. Congratulations. You can stay here. It's okay. Yeah, that's great. You're in the spotlight now. Okay, Colin Fitzgerald, Matthew Francis, Olivia Giordani, Ryan Harder, Samantha Hodge, Ava Magjish, Madison McCartney, Isabel Ott, Galina Filpovsky, congratulations, Galina, Emma Rennig, Eleanor Santususo, Lily Shanaman, Samuel Sauce, congratulations, Madeline Tat, Ashley Vale, Jessica Weinberg, William Witchcraft, and Lana Youngman. We congratulate these students and those that are not here tonight, but their names were read on this well-earned accomplishment, and celebrate their bright future as they continue through their technical education program at North Montco. Congratulations to all of you, and to those of you graduating, congratulations on that too. So we'll go through two more groups, and then we'll ask you to come out into the lobby for a picture. Great, thanks again. Okay, next, we are honored to recognize a hero within the halls of Middle School East, a 7th grader, Tim Muraney. Is Tim here tonight? Yeah, Tim. Congratulations, Tim. So while lunchtime is usually a chance to sort of kick back and relax, socialize with your friends, Tim showed some really unusual leadership that we are extremely proud of, along with some courage, and he was called upon. That's right, Daddy. He was called upon. He himself noticed that a fellow student was in distress, and he was unable to breathe during lunch. Tim didn't hesitate. He recognized the signs of choking in this student, and he immediately took action and conducted the Heimlich on this student. His calm, quick thinking, and his bravery, his courage to step up and do that may have saved a life, but we are really proud of what Tim was willing to step up and do when he noticed this distress on the part of his peer. And it really is a powerful reminder of the impact one person can have when they're looking out for others. So Tim, congratulations and thank you very much. We are really proud of what you did. Congratulations. Thanks for coming tonight. Yeah, but did you get a cookie? Okay, and we're gonna get your picture afterwards. Okay, thanks, Tim. All right, and we have a third recognition tonight, and this is finally to recognize one of our building principals, Mrs. Krista Venza. We are very proud to recognize Mrs. Venza, principal at Schwenksville Elementary School. Come on up, Mrs. Venza. For her recent professional contributions, Mrs. Venza has authored 2 articles that were recently published, one in the Pennsylvania Administrator magazine in the fall 2024 issue, she wrote about enhancing professional growth by just sharing, which is an activity she facilitates on a regular basis at Schwenksville Elementary, where teachers share with one another some of the things they're learning pay off well for students. That's called Just Sharing. It's voluntary on the part of her staff, and it's almost without people realizing it, some nice professional learning that's very collegial and collaborative in nature. Also, in the fall of 2025, her article, Promoting Positive Behavior with Purpose, Stuffy Therapy Dog Program Success, was published. She was inspired by the school's therapy dog program and the creative initiative which allows for students to care for a plush therapy dog for a day, promoting positive behavior while supporting social emotional learning. There's also been some real live dogs that have come into the school setting and served in similar ways, which is where the idea came from. We've had a lot of success with our therapy dogs, facility dogs in our school settings. We commend Mrs. Venza for her leadership and commitment to sharing these impactful practices that benefit students and educators well beyond our school district. So congratulations, Mrs. Venza, and thank you to the board for recognizing her tonight. Well done. All right.
All right, so with that, we're going to do just a very, very brief recess for photos in the lobby, and then we will resume. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
ballot. So we will go ahead and resume. Moving on to 1.09, comments on any topic. The board affords the public an opportunity to comment on any topic for a duration of 3 minutes. Please state your name and municipality. I open the floor. Seeing none, we will move on to section 2, reports and presentations. 2.01, student liaisons report. Mr. Lees and Mr. Rapp.
Thank you. Good evening. We hope everyone had a good holiday break.
We'd like to begin by congratulating the competitive cheerleading team for making it to the semifinals for the state championship and finishing 9th in the state, so definitely a big accomplishment.
We'd also like to congratulate Mackenzie Moore, Isabel Murphy, Thomas Hayward, Emma Fullup, and Peyton Buffardi for making PMEA choir districts and regionals.
And then finally, MLK Day is next Monday, and there will be several opportunities for students to honor the legacy of MLK. And we'd like to thank the administration and anybody else who will be volunteering for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. 2.02, President's Report. I have nothing at this time. 2.03, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Ms. White. I have 2 items this evening. We once again begin with a review of the mission, our comprehensive plan that was just approved at the end of last school year, and the 4 overarching goals that are part of our comprehensive plan continue to ground us in our thinking and the action steps that we take towards improving experiences for our students as well as outcomes. These are our shared beliefs, continue to focus on preparing students to be future ready, to attend schools and feel safe and supported, and build partnerships with those stakeholder groups around us. On my agenda this evening, I'd like to begin with school board recognition and then talk to you about a new path. So school board recognition, this is School Director, Recognition Month, January 2026. So I'm going to ask that our cabinet team stand, and they have gifts that they would like to distribute to our board members in thanks and appreciation for your service. So I think it's important to call out to those in the public that board members volunteer their time and effort, and their roles and responsibilities to govern effectively aren't easy, but really benefit not only our students, but our entire community. Each board member is elected to a 4-year term, and the election cycle runs every 2 years. And in recent years, our board members across many districts in Pennsylvania have navigated some of the most challenging issues districts have faced in a very long time. That was definitely a setup. In honor of their dedicated service, administration is taking time this month to celebrate them. We have a simple gift as a token of our appreciation, and really verbally, we want to extend our sincere thanks and appreciation for your willingness to take on this work and to actually do it. This is our board, the latest picture, and those of you around the table. These are some of the responsibilities that you take on as part of your governance, but I would personally like to extend sincere thanks and appreciation. Some of you have just come onto the board in December, so you're gearing up, but it is recognized as work that is not easy, but much appreciated, so thank you. Thank you for your service. Round of applause. And thank you to our cabinet administrators. They also support the efforts who help distribute our gifts. So a new path. My second agenda item really is about my public announcing of my retirement for June 30th this school year. And there's a letter that's attached to the board agenda. In addition to that letter, which expresses some of my feelings and really the emotions that I have as part of the attachment and commitment to the school district, I just wanted to take this moment to publicly share truly my deep appreciation and my sincere thanks for the opportunities I have been afforded in the district. It has been my honor, my privilege to both lead and serve in this school district for the time that I have been here. And I thank this board and the boards that have come before you for your support of my leadership. I also just want to give a little shout out to my family, my husband and my 3 kids who were extremely supportive along my career journey. So thanks to them too. So the new path for Barb Russell, but thank you for the one that I've been on for the past 40 years. Much appreciated.
So Dr. Russell, just to that end, my report comes before your report, so I didn't want to take away your report's thunder. But on behalf of this board and myself personally, I have absolutely loved every moment, even the hard ones, of being able to work alongside you. Your mentorship and your leadership, I think, is felt by all those that you encounter, whether it be professionally or not. So I really very much appreciate that, and I wish you nothing but the best. I know the board feels the same way. So
Thank you.
more to come. You have a lot of work to do in a short amount of
right.
time. So
That's right.
no pressure there, but you know, but we really much appreciate it. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add? We have comments at the end, of course, but.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. All right, so solicitors report, Mr. Subers.
No report?
No report this month, and that moves us on to board and district committee reports. 2.05, we had policy this evening, just prior to this meeting. We have finance this evening. Negotiations will continue to meet. We met twice already in January. We're going to meet again on the 14th and again at the end of the month on the 29th to discuss our 2 open agreements. We have Education Committee of the Whole. That is this week. That takes place at 7 o'clock. Just before that, around, it's 3:45. It's a 3:45 meeting for wellness this month. We have Safety and Operations on the 22nd. And then JOC meets on the 21st. Does anyone have anything to add with regard to board or district committees? Okay. Seeing nothing else, we'll move on to section 3, which is the consent agenda. So there is no consent agenda for this meeting because we only have this one meeting in January. So as you move through your sections, especially for our newer board members, you will go ahead and make the motion for the item that needs action, and then I'll look for a second, and we'll actually vote this evening. It'll just be all in one. There won't be anything to move to consent. Everybody on the same page with that? Great. All right, and that takes us to section 4, education. Mr. McKinney.
Thank you, Ms. White. Dr. Russell, do you have it teed up?
I do. Thank you, Mr. McKinney. And so I will take education updates this month and then pass it on to Dr. Nicholson moving forward. He will also take the lead on the Education Committee of the Whole. So this evening, there's one agenda item. We want to continue the conversations about enrollment and staffing. So these are the current and projected enrollments, and this evening at Policy Committee, we talked about what ifs based on class size recommendations that might shift based on policy language and discussion. That will come before the board next month. So what administration is tasked with doing is really looking at what the impact could be on the projected enrollments for next year if we shift class size recommendations down to generate smaller class sizes, or aim for them anyway. Those recommendations in Policy 126 aren't hard and fast. They are guidelines, they are recommendations that we aim for. Philosophically, we have been a district that has really stressed and attempted to consistently set up lower class sizes as opposed to higher ones. So you can see that based upon current enrollments as of 1/9 versus projected. So we're just rolling over kindergarten, and we're rolling over current kindergarten into first grade. We're not adding anything just because of the historical patterns we're starting to develop and the declining enrollment. You get a sense of where we are in terms of needs, staff and students, and then the class sizes that would result. So right now, if these numbers stay the same, there is the possibility that we will need 3 fewer teachers at the elementary level. There's a disclaimer there at the bottom. That can change because our numbers change. At the secondary level, you see the same data presented currently and then projected out for next year. And we divide our fifth graders out and figure out who's going to West and who's going to East, because that's not necessarily easy to do without looking into our system, because our students at Skipback split and our students at Evergreen split. So we need to figure that out through our student information system. At any rate, these are the numbers that right now, as of current enrollments, would be generated or are projected for next year. We could do right now with one fewer teacher in sixth grade based on those numbers. So here's this month's summary and some of the takeaways. The number of teachers and the positions that are necessary right now based on today, and rolling things right over without looking at the suggested policy changes, indicate 3 fewer teachers potentially at the elementary, maybe 1 less teacher at the middle level. And again, I'll point out that the class sizes projected at West are well below Policy 126 guidelines for 7th and 8th grade students, and we're thinking about that. We're trying to think differently in how we are most resourceful with our human resources as well as our facility resources, because West will have does have a projected enrollment that will be less than that of Evergreen and Skipback next year. And again, it takes us back to some of the discussions we had last year about resourcefulness with facilities. Our elementary schools, despite the fact that enrollments are declining, are struggling for space because of the students they are serving today and how different that looks from students before. We also thought there might be benefits to students by arranging them differently. That was part of the proposal last year. We haven't forgotten about facilities. We're still having conversations about those, and again, being as resourceful as we can be as a district. This will be a standing item moving forward on our Education Committee of the Whole. So we'll have more conversations about that. What do we look at? What should we consider? What's possible with some of the space that does exist in some of our buildings, West in particular? So you see that as the last bullet there. In addition, enrollment spills over and impacts our staffing requests. This is the district enrollment over time. And you can see that it's declined by about a little over 1,000 students these past 10 years. These enrollments are based upon either October 1 or December 1 counts, but they're at the beginning of the year when enrollments have had an opportunity to stabilize. So they are taken consistently from that same metric.
Dr. Russell, real quick on that previous slide. I know this particular chart only shows our district enrollment and numbers, but based on the discussions that we've had in other settings, these numbers are not an anomaly. They're actually the same for surrounding districts and the state, correct? Comparatively.
So you mean that other districts are experiencing a decline?
Correct.
Yes, some are. Now, North Penn is different. They are growing. You know, as I've spoken with Mr. Nicholson about, other districts that I work more closely with are also experiencing a decline.
Okay, and then statewide, there's a trend of declining enrollment as well.
Yes, that is correct.
I just wanted to make sure that we clarified how our numbers look compared to the state.
Thank you. So if we shift then, because we've been talking about the need for special education supports, we see an actual increase. Even though our enrollment's declining, we see an increase in the number of students identified and eligible for specially designed instruction. That's based on December 1 counts. So administration came to the board in December and recommended the addition of 1 special education supervisor. Our special education supervisors are very supportive of what's happening in the buildings, particularly with these district-wide classrooms. And with increasing enrollments, with some increasing behavioral needs and learning needs. Students are learning differently today. Some of you heard that as part of our policy committee conversation. We believe that additional support will improve the experiences of our students and the experiences and outcomes of our students. So that continues over from December. I also presented to the board in a memo this weekend some information about athletic data. We've seen an increase in the number of athletes participating and the number of sports, the number of teams that our athletic director is expected to provide oversight for. Now, there have been some combined teams, particularly at the middle level, football, for example, field hockey, wrestling. So there have been some combinations. There are a larger number of teams to oversee. And with the turf, a lot of evenings, because lots of teams compete on the turf, a lot of evening commitments for that individual. So administration is requesting consideration for a .5 assistant athletic director that could support the efforts of Mr. Felty because of his commitments to athletics based on some of the teams that exist today and didn't exist before, and that turf field, those turf fields, excuse me, and the commitments to participate during the evening. It would certainly provide him with more opportunities to recruit, to support his coaches, and certainly to retain. This position would focus heavily on the middle level, so it would provide for some increased continuity there, and then as feeder programs into the high school, and then certainly professional learning, which is necessary for all of the stakeholder groups that exist in the school district. So administration is coming forward to the board, adding this. In both cases, the special education supervisor position and the assistant athletic director, it is hoped that we can reallocate resources that might resign or retire, which is what we've been doing in years past to cover the costs associated with these positions. So I'd be happy to entertain questions if the board has them.
I have one question before we open up the table, if you don't mind. That assistant athletic director, .5, I know we had talked about, in terms of the bargaining unit, I know that it notes Act 93. Is there, has there been conversation about leaving it as a PVEA bargaining unit opportunity, like as a TOSA, a .5, or is there a reason that can't happen?
I'm going to invite Mr. Moran to speak. He's been working on this and with our solicitor on a combined position, and yes, there are some reasons why we would go with Act 93, presuming it's permissible to have an individual serve in two different agreements.
I think that's where my question really arises.
Yeah, we have absolutely given consideration to that. Because the position as a director of athletics already exists as an Act 93 position, the thought process would be to have the assistant athletic director also be an Act 93 position. It also provides additional flexibility for that individual to be visible and on staff, during the evenings and also on the weekends. Provides more flexibility for that individual to do that as an Act 93 member compared to a PVEA member.
So how would an individual potentially be in both bargaining units at the same time?
So the member as a PVA member would be a part-time position, so it'd be a .5, and we've had .5 positions in the past. They will have half of the schedule as a 1.0 teacher, and then they would be able to spend the remainder of their time in an Act 93 position. In addition, by making an Act 93 position, it provides that flexibility. It also allows that individual to supervise and evaluate our coaches, which is an area that we know we want to continue to focus on.
Okay. I open the table for other comments or questions. Go ahead, Mrs. Lofton.
So I have a couple questions. The first one is about the special education supervisor, and I think that there has been a clearly demonstrated need for that position, and so my question around that is the timing, because typically in our budget process, we wait until, the end of the school year, and it's essentially we are hiring someone over the summer to start in September or August. I'm just wondering if we would consider bringing somebody in, now, put it on either the end of January meeting or our February meeting so that we could have somebody potentially start before the end of the school year. And, I'm not sure whether that would be disruptive or something that could be of benefit. And I recall many years ago having conversations about timing of posting positions and how that can affect the applicant pool that's available to us. So I'm just curious what you think would be the ideal timing for this type of a position.
So first of all, I just want to thank you, Mrs. Lofton, for even suggesting that, because it is a bit unorthodox to bring an administrator in based on a recommendation like this during the school year. And I do recall, and I was speaking with Ms. Zaducci today, I do recall your efforts to assist administration in seeking employees sooner rather than later, and the board approving that before they had approved the final budget for several years, which was extremely helpful. To go back to your question about approving the position sooner rather than later, and as soon as the end of January or February, I think that's music to our ears. And I've invited Ms. Zaducci to share with the board if you would like to hear from her, but there is absolutely a need for greater support and support of our staff so that they in turn can support their students most effectively. So it would be an add to the budget. It gets a little messy to do that this time of the year. Mr. Weaver and I have discussed it. We discussed it this morning after your suggestion, anticipating it may come up tonight as a comment. He's prepared to speak to what that would mean. And Ms. Zaducci can speak to her view on the timing of bringing a position in.
First of all, are there any specific questions regarding the addition of the special ed supervisor? I can provide rationale. We can go into detail about why this is helpful, not too much detail. But overall, I think the sooner we get help in the special education department, not just for the special education department, but also for the teachers and the administrators locally within the buildings, I think the first thing you would do is increase the pool of candidates that you potentially have to hire from. At the end of the day, the earlier we can get the hiring process through, the better pool of candidates we're going to have at the end of the day. In addition to that, you're going to provide an immediate release valve for what's going on in the buildings. We know we've seen an increase of overall of about 8% in our special education numbers over the past couple of years. In addition to that, it's not only the percentage of our students or the number of our students growing, it's also the percentage of students identified, which can potentially put increased pressure or have an increased impact on the general education classrooms as well. So we see a number of factors coming into play. The needs of our students have changed drastically. A couple years ago, we could have one or two cases that had really complex case management needs. Today, what we're experiencing in the last year or two is that we have several cases across several buildings which require increased case management, complex case management, where you might have a building principal, a special ed supervisor, and 2 to 3 teachers managing and supporting one student situation in a building for several hours, potentially several days a week, over the course of several weeks. So that level of demand can have a significant impact on the building. I think overall, if you would bring in a person sooner, you're going to see more immediate relief for those people who have boots on the ground. For the building admin who are struggling to support that model, for our special ed supervisors who are really struggling to support that model, and for our staff who are engaging throughout the entire process.
Ms. Adichie, thank you so much. And Mrs. Lofton, I agree with you in a sense that if we were to support this ad of the position, I don't know that there's any benefit to the district as a whole to just delay it until after the fact if it's like going to be something that we support anyway. And that's sort of my personal position on it. So I agree with Mrs. Lofton in approving it sooner rather than later, especially leading into the spring. And I would say thank you for bringing recommendations to us in January so we can try to help triage some of the, and get ahead of some of the hiring that needs to take place in the hiring cycle. For the purposes of the public and maybe newer board members as well, could you, Ms. Aducci, just outline what special education supervisors we currently have and what their role and responsibility is, just so we could understand on the record what this addition would take on?
Sure. So currently, we have Mrs. Megan McCord. She's our supervisor for special education at the high school level. In addition to that, there are a number of district-wide responsibilities that special ed supervisors take on, and Mrs. McCord takes on our PASA projects and tasks that we have throughout the entire school year. We have Mrs. Michelle Evans. Well, she was here earlier, but she's not here right now. She currently supervises Middle School East, Middle School West, as well as Evergreen Elementary School. And then we have Dr. Gibbons. In addition to that, she does ESY programming, and that usually goes throughout the entire year. And then we have Dr. Erin Gibbons. She currently supervises the 3 elementary buildings. She does early intervention, which is a significant task throughout the year. That starts in and around December and then wraps up in and around August, right before the beginning of the school year. So that does demand a lot of time. At the elementary level, you have the influx of about 6 AS programs as well. Mrs. Evans oversees the 2 ES programs at Evergreen Elementary School.
So I realize it's not quite as cut and dry as maybe I'll make it seem in the next sentence, but this person would essentially perhaps take over 2 elementaries. Ms. Gibbons could take over 2 elementaries, and then the middle level can be handled as 2 buildings.
Potentially.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot of moving parts regarding that.
Right, I realize it's not quite as cut and dry as that, but just in terms of
Our
oversight.
biggest need is at the elementary
Right.
building right now. With the complexity of our students, with the amount of program classes that we have, we do want to make sure that we're not upsetting the apple cart. We have, we've worked on a lot of relationship building with some of the buildings that have struggled in the past with some of our program classes, and we feel as though we might be in a good spot. So it might not be as cut and dry as 2 elementary schools for one and 2 for the other, although it could be. We want to take into account the overall broader picture. The high school tends to have the highest caseload. Overall, you're hovering between 280 and 300 students on a high school caseload level, whereas the middle school caseload level is about 212 students. There's different tasks and complexities to the responsibilities that supervisors have, between early intervention to ESY and to PASA coordination. But we would work to, look at the person or the individual who would be coming on board. What are their strengths? Where can they create the biggest bang for the buck with us? And we would want to make sure that we're assigning responsibilities with not just our needs in mind, but also building needs, staffing needs, and student needs.
Okay. Understood. And I guess the last piece of that, if this would be a recommendation in the data presentation for 26, 27, and that would be worked into the budget accordingly, how could an earlier hire potentially impact the rest of this year?
So roughly until, first of all, obviously it's not budgeted, so.
Be a partial year, right?
In our duty as service to the school district and what it is that we do in the business office, it would have to come out of unassigned fund balance. However, remember, an Act 93 position would be from July 1st through June 30. So until this person actually arrives here and actually begins to work, because there could be a hold from a sending district, it could actually be April or May until they get here. So it would be a third or a fourth of what that cost would roughly be. So not a tremendous impact overall, but it would be an impact on the unassigned fund balance. And we would work it into
But
next year's
isolated budget monies for this year, and then it would be worked into the budget for next year, and then offset by whatever.
Correct. We actually have it listed as one of our ads for next year's budget already as presented.
And I noticed that in the, okay. Does anyone have any questions with regard to the potential to move it up for earlier approval, or about the position in general?
Ms. White? I don't have a question in regards to this position. I think its need is self-evident. So in regards to that, rather than wait and move this along for the future, let's use the powers that the court has given us. I move to amend the agenda to add a special education supervisor and begin the search immediately to the agenda.
Second.
It's a motion made to amend the agenda by Mr. Liggett and seconded by Mrs. Lofton. Are there any comments or questions?
I would just note that the reason or basis for that amendment is the prior discussion this evening.
I was going to be happy to wait till the date of presentation, but if you want to do it tonight, we can do it. No time like the present.
Let's be
All right.
bold.
Wonderful. Let's roll. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Against? All right. You asked, you got.
Well, thank you
Point of order,
very
do we
much.
now have to move the amendment because that was a motion to...
that was a motion to amend.
To approve the agenda?
That is correct.
And that was the approval
You-
to move the agenda.
It's,
We've
you've
now-
amended.
we've now
added
amended
this
the
item to
agenda, now we need to
agenda.
move on the
You will have to
motion.
vote on this item.
So moved.
Okay. And then Mrs. Lofton?
Second.
Okay. So all in favor there? Aye. Okay, against? Motion carries. We have to wait till we get to the section.
No, you know what, I just want to make sure that there's no public comment on that motion, because the motion, public comment was offered prior to the motion. So would there be any public comment on the addition of a special education supervisor from the public?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, we're okay.
Thank you, Mr. Subers. Thank you, Mr. Liggett.
And thank you from me and Ms. Aducci. Much appreciated. Thank you, Board.
All right, so
I have more questions.
with regards to the special education supervisor?
Oh, no, no,
We're
no.
moving on to athletics.
Athletic director.
Understood. Let her advance the slide. Hold on one second.
So I just want to make sure I understand the supervisory requirements. Anytime there is an athletic competition taking place on district property, an administrator needs to be present. Is that accurate? Or what? Help me understand what's happening with the evening competitions.
I don't know that it's a hard and fast law under PIAA. I'm not aware of that. I do know that Mr. Felty takes on the responsibility and typically attends the evening competitions that our school hosts for our athletic teams here. And because of that, and still coming in early in the morning, so that he can engage with coaches that are teachers here in this building or even at the middle level, he is spread pretty thin. There are some faculty managers. There's a faculty manager at the high school. So in response to the question, well, what happens if Mr. Felty gets sick? Well, there is a faculty manager. There's also the high school administrative team that sometimes attends these events, so that there is an administrator on site. He makes every effort to attend just about everything.
And then the request for it to be an administrator, if I understood correctly from the discussion earlier, is to have the ability to supervise staff?
I think it's hours, right? Well, it's a combination of that, the ability to really supervise and evaluate coaches, as well as be flexible with hours. So if it was a teaching position, they're held more tightly to the contract and the contractual hours. So we envision a possibility could be a 0.5 teacher reducing a schedule to half, and the other half of the day being dedicated to assistant athletics directorship. So we could work that schedule a little bit. Maybe they start third period of the day. Maybe that works, maybe it really doesn't, to accommodate some of the coaching conversations, whatever. They could start their teaching schedule a little bit later, but most athletic events, even practices, take us to 5:30 before students depart and are headed home, let alone when there are competitions, which can last longer. So that Act 93 designation just affords the district more flexibility because of the regular commitments after school.
And then if it is a .5 position. Is it intended to be 20 hours a week and you're clocking out? Or how is that structured as a .5 position for what's essentially a salaried employee?
So I think we would want to outline that in a little bit more detail, but again, what we are envisioning is the possibility for one of our teachers to drop down to a .5. So they'd be teaching half a day and then dedicating roughly a second half a day that might extend a little beyond what would technically be 3.5 hours, let's say, half a day, because of all that's a part of athletics. So the administrative positions are a little bit more flexible in their design, and a .5 administrator would be the other half of a teaching schedule within reason, but also with some flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested to see what a job description for this position would look like.
Okay, we can bring that forward to the board.
Can I ask a question? Would we be replacing the other .5 of the person?
No.
No.
The idea, right, the idea would be, due to declining enrollment, we can afford to decrease a position. And there are some individuals who we wonder might be interested, but we could decrease a position to .5 through attrition, a need for fewer classes. And then, with some interest on the part of an individual, fill their schedule so they remain a 1.0, but the second half of that schedule is athletic directorship activities. Yeah. So no. So actually, this wouldn't be an ad at all. It would really be almost a wash.
It's an
completely.
FTE neutral, maybe a little bit more in salary.
A little bit more on the administrative
For the
side. We'd
administrative
have to
side.
work that out, and we could present that to you, but almost a wash, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Russell. The only thing I would add is, so there is the requirement for an administrator to be to be present for playoff games. So that is one area that we need to ensure that we continue to have. And by making it a .5 teacher position and a .5 administrative position, it does allow us to better clearly delineate the difference between the teaching role and an athletic director or assistant director role. Sometimes those lines get a little bit blurred when it is in the same bargaining group and you're trying to delineate which role they are functioning in.
Are there other questions? So I'm hearing that we need a little bit more information with regards to a job description and perhaps delineation of the way that a .5 salary would look in both bargaining units. All right.
Thank you for the opportunity, and we'll provide that information.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. 4.02, approval of amendment to high school student handbook. There's a motion to amend the high school student handbook. Are there any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns about this?
We're going to do a second first. So Mr. McKinney made the motion?
Yeah,
And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Westphal. Are there any comments or questions?
I just have one question. I guess I should perhaps direct this to Dr. Fuller. What is the difference between this amendment for the handbook and the current, let's say, rules regarding gross insubordination? Thank you.
Currently, there are no rules regarding gross insubordination. This is a straight addition to our handbook, and it's come to us because this fall we had a student who essentially refused to be searched. And that's always a tricky situation, especially when the student is agitated. So when we landed on insubordination, we felt that the penalty for insubordination was insufficient to the act of refusing a lawful search by an administrator, and so we offer this amendment.
Thank you. I just wanted a full understanding of what it was we were doing here.
Are there additional comments or questions? Okay, with no issue, all in favor? Against? Motion carries.
4.03 is the enrollment reports attached for January for both charter school enrollment, and the other. That concludes my section, Ms. White.
Mr. McKinney, thank you so much. Section 5, Mr. Liggett, business.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to hand this off to my friend, Mr. Jim Weaver.
Mr. Weaver, it's 8:15.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity tonight to present the Finance Committee agenda. We have a packed agenda, so I'll move forward. Right up front, we have Mr. Carl Hogan here from CLA, our Clifton Larson Allen group, to present our results from 24-25. He's going to be fairly quick in his response and move forward. Mr. Hogan?
So just like in previous years, I'm going to kind of set the table, where you ended up for 24-25 in relation to your financial results. You're halfway through 25-26, and you're going to be talking about 26-27, so it never ends. It seems like you're on a constant budget cycle. So this is going to give you a baseline for what you're going to make decisions for your 26-27 budget. The first thing I put here is the most important thing. You hire an independent CPA firm on an annual basis to determine what type of audit report you're going to receive. And as the independent auditors, we issue an audit report on an annual basis. You're required by the state. So in the case of this is the pro forma for the for the independent auditors report for June 30th, 2025, basically stating that the numbers that were presented to us for the year ended June 30th, 2025 were fairly presented, or in other words, you have an unqualified and unmodified audit report for the year ended June 30th, 2025, consistent with other years that the district has went through this process. The only thing I'm going to point out in the independent auditors report, when everybody receives the final 70-page audit report, there's two sections, within the audit report that I think are very important to those people that aren't normal users of the financial statements. And since we have some new board members, I want to point out when you receive, there's a section in the beginning of the audit report talking about management's discussion and analysis, and this is put together by Jim and Amy on an annual basis, basically giving a synopsis of the financial results. So for those that aren't very familiar with the financial statements, this gives them the ability to talk about the financial results for 24-25, but then also it gives them the opportunity to talk about not only what's happened from June 30th, 2025 through today, and also to talk about things that could impact the future. I just say this because it's a section of the audit report that we don't necessarily audit. We make sure it's consistent with the rest of the audit report, but because the audit is, a historical document, it gives them the ability to talk about what's happened since the school year ended, what's through the current date of the audit report, and what they anticipate to happen financially throughout the school district in the future. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide here. I have some other slides later on in the presentation that kind of go over this at a more high level and better for this presentation. But I do want to point out, we'll talk, and that involves the general fund, but I also want to talk about the capital projects fund. During the current year, there was a current bond issue that there was some HVAC projects, and also you were continuing your guaranteed energy savings project during the year. And then also you have your debt service fund in which you facilitate your debt service payments through transfers, through budgeted appropriations through the general fund. So I'll kind of go over some, I have a consolidated budget to actual schedule in the back and a couple slides, and since that's kind of smaller there, and it'll kind of make it easier for us to be able to follow the information. Here's just a couple more slides I think are important for the financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2025. We'll talk shortly about the budget to actual results. which gives you the revenues in, the expenditures out for the year. But on the left-hand side here, we have your balance sheet. And basically, your balance sheet is a point in time as of June 30th, 2025. In this case, what are our assets? What are our liabilities? And the excess of those assets over the liabilities being the district's fund balance. So as you can see in the case here, as of June 30th, 2025, the district had total assets of approximately $32 million, of which $24.8 million is liquid in relation to cash. And then also we have due from other governments being your other largest asset, being $3.5 million. And this is just due to timing of amounts that are being reimbursed through the state of Pennsylvania on an annual basis. As you come down, your liabilities, your biggest liability at year end is related to your accrued salaries and benefits for the new school board members. Teachers work from September to June, but they get paid through August of the next year. So what we do here is we accrue all their salaries and benefits. They earn through June 30th, and then they get paid out through the next 2 months there. It's just a natural thing that school districts do in relation to how they pay their teachers out on an annual basis. And then down below, we have the breakout of your fund balance. And what you're going to learn is PA school districts are required to commit or assign fund balance in excess of your 8% of your next year's expenditure budget. And we'll talk about that on the next slide coming up. So in the case here, the district has $1.2 million committed for employer retirement rate stabilization, $5.9 million committed for future capital projects that the district has been able to put aside and has been spending down over recent years, $300,000 to balance the 25-26 budget, and then $7.2 million of unassigned fund balance, which is within that 8% allowed by the state of Pennsylvania. Also on the right-hand side there, I just put out a little clip from the notes to the financial statements related to the general obligation debt of the school district during the current year. There were 2 new issues, series of 2024, series of 2024A. 2024 is relation to a refinancing that the district was able to take advantage of to reduce future debt service payments, kind of like when you refinance your house. And then the series of 2024A was taken out for new money in relation to new capital projects that we looked at in the capital projects fund before for some HVAC projects in addition to the ongoing guaranteed energy savings project. Here, single audit and findings. So we'll talk about the general fund results, which I know everybody wants to get to, but as a result of our audit, we didn't find anything what we consider to be a material weakness, significant deficiency, and then also with the federal awards audit, we continue. This is a piece that's not completed yet. If you didn't think the government shutdown affected your school district, there's certain information, what they call a compliance supplement, that didn't come out until December. So we're going to finish up the single audit piece, and we're going to update the major federal program down below. It's going to be your special education cluster program for the current year based upon the new compliance supplement and the rotation that the school district goes through on an annual basis. So we should be able to get that wrapped up. The good news is there's a lot of oversight. Not only do we audit your federal awards, the Montgomery County IU has oversight over your special education cluster, and then also in the previous year, the audit of the Pennsylvania Department of Education has monitors your child nutrition cluster program on an annual basis as well. So here's the information I wanted to talk about, and this is what's going to be the basis for Jim's presentation here tonight as you go into the new budget process. We have your budgeted figures, we have your actual figures, and then we have the variance with your, what your budget figures were in relation to your expenditures. And if you look at that revenue and expenditure, when you get your final audit report, it's kind of broken out by function. But I think this is the most important thing in relation to the total. I'm looking at the totals, and as you kind of roll that forward to the to 25-26 and then the 26-27. The first thing I'm going to point out are your revenues. Once again, your revenues exceeded your budget. For people that have been here looking at the audit for previous years, the acceleration or the velocity in which your revenues are exceeding your budget are slowing down immensely. Those earned income taxes, transfer taxes, those things that that fund balance that you have that's there for those capital projects that you've been able to put aside, that was over the 8%, those monies aren't there as much as they were in previous years. So even though there are better than anticipated tax revenues, better than anticipated investment revenues related to interest income, I'm seeing this across the board with all the school districts, the velocity or, the amount of revenue that is exceeding the budget that schools have been able to enjoy over the past couple of years is by far definitely slowing. Expenditures, you're going to see that they're more than budgeted, but there's a caveat to that. It was a planned spend of the expenditures in terms of using assigned. So in the terms of the district, they don't budget the expenditures, they plan the use of fund balance. So in the case of the district, they plan to use $1.8 million for capital projects that were committed for the current year. And then also there was a planned use of general fund balance. But when you pull that out, which exists with the over expenditure of about 3.7 of about, when you pull that out and you look at the total budget of $130 billion, and even if you count those expenditures that were not per se budgeted, but a planned use of fund balance, of committed fund balance, you're within 2-3%. So that's, great in terms of that overall. And then as you can see down below, there were expenditures that were overspent. And then in the normal categories related to charter schools, contracted services, and salaries, special education related, et cetera. So it's not unusual. Those are the kind of line items that we usually see when you see over expenditures, those things that you can't necessarily control. You can control, you don't know how many employees you're going to have, but, sometimes when it comes to tuition, contracted services, et cetera, some things are out of control, and the district had the ability to absorb those costs in the current year based upon their good financial position. So here's your balance as of June 30th, 2024. And here's, there's that change of the fund balance, the decrease in fund balance, a part of it being planned and part of it being expenditures over revenues for the current year. As you move forward, you continue to use your committed fund balance for the entire employer retirement rate stabilization. Capital projects, there's that $1.8 million I spoke about. You have $5.9 million still to expend. In relation to those funds that were put aside, the COVID-19 contingency money and the curriculum and instruction monies were fully expended. We'll remove those from the presentation here. And then you have $300,000 like I spoke about to balance the budget. And there's that unassigned fund balance, or $7.2 million, which is 5.26% of your next year's expenditure budget, or $137 million. So in previous years, if you remember, you were over that 8%, you had to find a home for it. And most of the times it was fallen into that committed fund balance of capital projects, so you could get within that 8%. But the good thing is this year you don't have to make that kind of decision because it's below the 8% for your unassigned fund balance. So any questions? That's all I have. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you, Carl. 365 days and another 180 to wait for that. Wow. Thanks, Carl. Okay. So any questions from the board, you know that you can always reach out to us and let us know. And Carl's always an email away if you need some additional information. Overall, pretty good results. Okay, so moving forward as we prepare for 26-27, we had previously talked about recommended uses of fund balances that Mr. Hogan was just mentioning. We're recommending the use of our PSERS committed of $334,000. And we are also recommending the use in our debt service fund balance of $433,000, which brings that total to $767,785. That is, there are board motions for that, and that's our recommendation moving forward. We feel that that leaves us with reserves, both in PSERS and in debt service, with critical numbers moving forward for future budgets as well. Additionally, tonight, we are also recommending a transfer from our capital project reserve in the general fund, $2 million into the unassigned fund balance. What we're trying to do is we're trying to prop up the unassigned fund balance for multiple purposes. One, it provides flexibility to help improve our general fund budget process for 26-27. That in turn means our wallet size got a little bit bigger, and then we can dip into that because we are recommending use of unassigned fund balance to help offset the 26-27 budget. We all know, as Ms. Doyle, when she comes from public financial management, she always talks about our overall financial health. A higher unassigned fund balance closer to that 8% is a good idea. And then it's strategic in that it helps improve our financial strength in the eyes of those rating agencies, which is our S&P rating agency, our partner to maintain our AA credit rating. If we do this as recommended, the current balance in the capital project reserve within the general fund, remember, it sits within the general fund, is about 4.5 million. That's different than what Carl just proposed because we had 6 months, almost 6 months worth of expenditures written on that for projects that are ongoing. That will, if we transfer out $2 million, that will leave about $2.5 million still remaining in that capital reserve, capital project reserve in the general fund for future discussions that we might have in the safety and operations, bring it forward to the school board as we move forward. We do know that we are continuously monitoring other projects. We have some that we're going to identify and talk about in our next Safety and Operations Committee meeting as well. And again, if the board feels that that's not enough, we'd like to build up the unassigned fund balance, we can always talk about that. We are free to do so because these monies are not derived from any bond issue. These monies are placed in there, as Mr. Hogan said, because of our performances, because of our refunding of bonds, something along that line, or we had to find a place, as he put it so nicely, a home for those monies above the 8% cap. And that's what built up that capital project reserve. So the recommendation is to move $2 million. Again, there's some additional information on why we use unassigned fund balance. So we feel confident and we've utilized a strategy and philosophy to help offset shortfalls by use of general fund unassigned fund balances. And there's a really a positive thought to this, is that it's usually an unexpected surplus from financial performances, revenue line items that have exceeded our budget, expenditure line items that have been under budget, debt service refunding opportunities, pandemic-related items, salary savings, attritions, those types of things. And again, overall financial performances. Now, this particular year, Carl mentioned that we got hit by charter schools fairly hard and special education costs. So we adjust for that in 26-27, and hopefully 26-27 is a better performance year, and we might be able to use to backfill some of that unassigned fund balance. Again, we know that it's or we can use it for one-time costs. So we do know that, in particular, our Bucksmont health insurance increase, somewhere between, we're going to go out at 15%. Or the first look was 18%. That would be considered a one-time item for us to address with it being so high. If it's an ongoing cost of 6 to 8%, that's a different story. But in this particular case, it's a very unique situation in the Bucksmont. And we would say that that would be considered a one-time cost. And again, we've always worked together to make sure that we maximize these opportunities to use these one-time monies and have our money work for us and the taxpayers as well.
So, Mr. Weaver, with regards to Bucksmont, that's out of context to some, so if you could just give
Sure, the school district.
Give context to what you mean.
Sure. So the school district participates in a Bucksmont Medical Consortium. It is a Taft-Hartley model. It is a management labor. We've been in that group for about, Mr. Moran, did we talk about, what was it, about 15 years already? And this is a very unique situation at this particular point in time for the Bucksmont. There could be some changes in plan design, those types of things. So we look at this as a one-time cost because it's so high at this point in time. We do not consider that this would continue. Our average trend has been below 6%. So this is a very unique situation for us to address. Yes.
So I'm just curious about that being a one-time cost, though, because we don't necessarily intend that or anticipate that it's going to keep increasing at that rate, but we are also not anticipating that the cost is going to come back down. So it is an ongoing cost once it bumps up to 15%. it's not a one-time cost.
It is not, it is,
Like if,
this
yeah.
is a unique situation.
Right.
I will freely say that.
But that's
And
got to be something that gets budgeted
we do
on an
have,
ongoing basis, right?
we have budgeted those monies at this point in time. And it's sitting at 15% at this point in time. You'll see the presentation.
Whereas like a one-time cost could be some sort of a capital project.
Absolutely, yes,
Right, okay.
yes. Any other questions about that?
So, but to Mrs. Lufton's point, I think when you say one-time cost, do you mean to make the adjustment, or do you mean it's an ongoing cost year over year, but you're talking about the variation, the differential between the percentages being a one-time adjustment?
We have never had an increase at 18%. We have not gone through a change in plan design through Bucksmont at this point in time either. So I would consider that a very unique item.
Excuse me, my other question relates to the charter school costs, and we heard that that's part of why we were over budget last year. Have we gotten any additional information from the state about how the changes to the state requirements around charter school funding are going to impact our budget?
Yes.
Great.
We have, and you'll see that in the presentation.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
You're one step ahead. Yes. Absolutely. And we were happy about that too. Yeah. Okay, from a philosophy standpoint, more so for the newer school board members, because the board members they know that we've actively utilized this in the past. You see a listing going back to 2010, 2011, which shows what our final tax increase was, what the Act 1 index was, where we ended up, and what the value of a mill was, and also the uses of our fund balances that we utilized over the years. Essentially, so this is nothing unusual for us to utilize these fund balances. If approved as recommended, the PSERS, the debt service, and the unassigned fund balance would be about little less than $1.5 million, which equates to about 1.03% of expenditures. At the 144 million, we're slightly below that, but that's a simple number to drive home. Moving into the unassigned fund balance, currently, as Carl just presented, it was 7.215. If we recommend a transfer into the general fund, unassigned fund balance from the capital reserve in the general fund, that's an additional $2 million. And then use of unassigned fund balance as recommended for $700,000. That leaves us with an estimated unassigned fund balance as of June 30 of $8.5 million. Remember, we're in the middle of 25-26. So our performance will also dictate and drive that number as well. We would go from a 5.26% unassigned fund balance to expenditures to about 5.91%, slightly below 6%. Okay, any questions on that? That is a lot, but we usually do this over time, and we do know that we are getting ourselves ready for a final push for 26-27. Okay, so where are we at tonight? Mrs. Lofton. So we have a small change in our December presentation for the PSERS rate. The PSERS rate, we had 34.72. It was certified early in December to 33.59. Remember, this is the revenue side. We also have a reduction on the expenditure side as well. There's our total revenues, $136,940,000 as presented tonight. Some breakdowns for local, state, and federal, a bar chart there, and then some additional questions that we continue to monitor as we go through. Carl mentioned real quick the alternative revenue streams. That shows strength in the economy, interest earnings, real estate transfer taxes, interim real estate taxes. We've tried to do our best from a conservative perspective for interest earnings. So we've reduced our interest earnings for 26-27 already with the anticipated reduction of the federal reduction, the Fed reducing the interest rates. There are those alternative revenue sources specifically listed. Moving into expenditures, The adjustments for tonight, there's the adjustment for the PESER certification, the reduction on the expenditure side. There is the PDE 363 charter school revision. And that is just based upon the raw data that we have from our 363. Remember, that is also happening this year as well. So when we look at the performance for 25-26, hopefully we'll see a reduction in what we anticipated or what we budgeted for 25-26, because we reacted to the 24-25 when we built the 25-26. So hopefully there's some reduction. Currently, this is for 26-27. And then there is the reduction for the Bucksmont from the 18.53 that was presented in the equal sign down to the 15%. Total adjustments, we reduced our expenditures by $971,000. Total expenditures, $143,988,752. It's about a 4.96% increase budget year to budget year at this point in time as of tonight's presentation. Here's a quick slide that you can look at. And we will keep a running total of some highlights of our expenditures. The items in red are specific to the items that we are recognizing for tonight's presentation. So in next month's presentation, those will go dark. And then if we have any additional changes, you'll see new additional red items. So we talked about the pressure points. 2 contract negotiations ongoing. Bucksmont, well, in this presentation, we adjusted. There's the red saying that we adjusted it to 15%. State budget unknowns, we don't know about that yet. We'll find out in a couple of weeks here when the governor gives the budget presentation. And the charter school and cyber charter schools continue to rise. The new law did help us. We reduced by about $200,000. The interactive tonight, you can see where we compare the revenues and expenditures, the uses of fund balance as recommended. So you still have to vote on them, but I'm presuming that they're pretty much going to pass and be approved, which is part of the process here. That gets us down to a $5.5 million shortfall. If you look at that, that generates a 6.6% tax increase. However, we know that we're also recommending accepting the resolution to cap ourselves at 3.5%. So if you look at that orange arrow there, what that says is the revenue from a 3.5% tax increase is $2.8 million. That means that our shortfall then on that other right-hand column is $2.7 million. So our shortfall is actually $2.7 million as I present it tonight as we build out our 26-27 budget. Again, I don't want to put the words in the school board that this is where we're going, but that's the Act 1 index, okay? My recommendation, if I had to today, would say we're going to go to the index and stay there. But just wanted you to see that our actual shortfall that we're working on reducing is $2.7 million. So, next budget step, obviously approve the recommended uses of fund balances. We are moving forward to approve the Act 1 resolution. That's our recommendation. This locks us into a normal budget process and the tax increase of 3.5% or lower for the 26-27 school year, and that's Board Motion 5.05. We continue to look at other items, not so much the exceptions at this point in time and exclusions. Governor gives his budget in February, preliminary budget approval in May, and final budget approval in June. That's a lot. Any questions?
Not a question, but Jim, just like to thank you for getting us to the Act 1 index of 3.5 in January. That's an amazing accomplishment. I also appreciate that you are acknowledging the board's will that we want to help rebuild the unassigned fund balance and raising it up to almost 6%. I really appreciate the work that has gone into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weaver, I know in the past there was discussion about wanting to keep the unassigned fund balance above 6%, and I see that we're coming in still a little under that. So is there any benefit to moving a little more money out of the capital projects fund to hit 6%, or is that really just a mental comfort zone and it doesn't really matter?
So there is no issue if we want to revisit this in February. and add additional
Or we could
monies to
always
that.
move more
Absolutely.
later.
Yes,
Okay.
the board and administration has that ability to do so, yes.
Okay. And then my other question is, knowing we have that little bit of cushion there in our capital projects fund, do we want to consider a bond issue to sort of spread out our capital funds project costs over time instead of, paying for everything up front? Because we could be implementing a project that's going to serve the district for 30 years. And so it makes sense that we have the bond so that we're sort of paying for it as we're using it. So has the Business Administration Office given any thought to issuing a bond?
We have taken that under consideration, yes. And that's one of the reasons I think that we're moving those monies from the capital reserve in the general fund now to at least get us to a certain base. We can have discussions about that. We do need to build out a project of some sort. And I do know Dr. Fuller is in the room. We need to focus on what that project might look like. Our initial go-around, working with Mr. Fabrizio and previous discussions with Dr. Fuller and Dr. Russell, has been, it will be a significantly sized project. And so a bond issue would be needed. So yes, we are building our confidence level to get to that point in time. Once we develop that plan and architects are involved and all that kind of stuff, which we have to talk about at the Safety and Operations Committee and then bring forward, then we'll be ready to go with that.
One follow-up question on that. Anticipating the high school ask, right now, would you anticipate that this project would be ESCO eligible or not?
At this point in time, I don't believe so. This is not going to be major HVAC units, that kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot of material move. Joe, what do you call that? It's
Stuff?
There's going to be a lot of...
No, understood. Just as we've been able to, in the past, most of our other bond projects have been, the projects have been ESCO.
They'll be more
compatible.
structural, they won't be, we've already
Yes.
done lights, we've
Right.
done HVAC here.
And that involves
Yeah.
mostly how it is that we go out to get the contracts, correct, Jim?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. I do envision a build instead of a, let's save monies and capital avoidance dollars that then we can shift for something else. It doesn't mean there might not be something in here that we can work in some way, shape, or form.
I was just wondering, in terms of the process that you'll work eventually with an architect, you can have conversations with regards to like LEED certification, things like that. There may be some monies that can be found there, especially in newer areas. But there won't be there's no retrofitting of structure.
The other thing I might want to add is that we never stopped with the other ESCO opportunities as well. So it is possible to perhaps package that up in some other
With
building.
components
that
of
we have-
another.
Yes, to help offset and generate some savings that
Free
go
up money
towards
on the
this.
one, yep.
And Joe and I have already met and continue to meet with CM3, what a 6.0 might look like in general. So that's not off the table as well. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Weaver. You know what? It wasn't an hour, so you still win. Still in the black.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. All right, let's get us hopefully back on the 10-minute trail here. Section 5.02 through 5.10 are all approvals that have been essentially covered by Jim, and I move all of these sections.
So I want to, if you could go through them individually, actually.
I can.
Mr. Liggett, that would be helpful.
Do you want to then have 8 separate votes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yep. In case anyone has any comments or questions about individual items, because Mr. Weaver gave his presentation.
That's fine. We can do this that way. 5.02, there's a motion to approve the use of committed PSERS and debt service reserves, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Lofton seconds. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
5.03 is a motion to approve a transfer for the capital reserve of $2 million, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
5.04 is a motion to approve the utilization of the unassigned fund balance of $700,000, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Against? Motion carries.
5.05 is I'm making a motion to approve the Act 1 index resolution.
Is there a second? Mr. Liggett motions.
Second.
Dr. Weston seconds. Any comments or questions? Mr. Weaver, I will ask. I just want to make sure that before we approve this resolution, that you and your team wholeheartedly feel as though this gives us enough bandwidth to achieve what we need to achieve.
I do. I would recommend that wholeheartedly. I've come a long way in this
Yeah.
particular budget season. I think we have some excellent opportunities to, through attritions and the like, to make up for this. We still have the state budget to go through, not, it could be a couple $100,000. And we have some other opportunities as, historically speaking, our expenditures get tighter as we get closer to the end of the year. So I do believe that we will be able to withhold the 3.5%, and that will be fine.
Okay, and this board wholeheartedly supports your recommendation. I just want to make sure that, like you said, we've come a long way from seeing 3.5 and not thinking we could get there to us approving the resolution. So I just wanted to give it its due conversation. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Against? Okay, resolution passes.
5.06 is the approval of the 2026-2027 MCIU budget, and I so move.
Is Mr. Liggett's motioned? Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
5.07 is an approval of the easement for the North Modco Tech Center, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. McKinney seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. They're going to be such beautiful bushes. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. Okay, 5.08, Mr. Liggett.
Thank you. This is a motion to approve a contract for an international trip with a parent, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Westphal seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
5.09 is the approval of special ed contracts and cost of services, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions. Is there a second?
I'd just like to bring to the board's attention that there's a need to amend this motion
Thank you.
to remove the ProCare contract. So I would request an amendment that the motion be limited to the Salient contract, and we're pulling the ProCare contract. So I'd have to ask Mr. Liggett and
I so amend.
And Ms. Westphal, I believe you seconded. Are you okay with that amendment? So we're
If you were
taking
to
out
do
one of
that,
the
then
two
we can move on.
contracts. Okay, so it's been amended through a friendly amendment, so the motion as presented is limited to the approval of the ProCare contract.
You mean the Sullivan contract?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, thank you.
Removing the
Let's
ProCare.
not do what Mr. Suber said that time.
Mrs. Reefer, are you okay? Okay. All right, so any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Subers. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
And 510 is is a motion for the approval of the bus drivers and aides, and I so move.
Mr. Liggett motions, is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Weston seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
5.11 is the grants and donations report, which is attached. That ends my section.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liggett, for entertaining my asks to do that the old-fashioned way.
That killed me, you know that.
It's okay. We had some things to talk about during the section. Excellent. All right, we are moving on to payment of bills. Ms. Westfall.
Thank you. Request to ratify the payment of bills and payroll as per the list submitted to the period ending December 31st. I so move.
Okay, so we have a motion from Ms. Westfall. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
And request to approve the treasurer's report and financial statements, including summary of cash and investment accounts as prepared by the administration for the period ending December 31st, and I so move.
Ms. Westfall motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Weston seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. And that ends your section, Ms. Westfall. Thank you so much. Your very first section. Good work. Section 7, professional personnel, Dr. Weston.
Thank you, Ms. White. Item 7.01, acceptance of resignations and retirements. Request to accept the resignations and retirements as listed. Recommended action is a motion to accept, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second by Ms. Westfall. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.02, approval of leaves of absence. This is a request to approve the leaves of absence as listed. The recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
There's a motion by Dr. Weston. Is there a second?
Second.
And Ms. Westfall seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Very good. Item 7.03, the approval of professional appointments. This is a request to approve the provisional appointment of the following professional personnel as listed. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.04, the approval of long-term substitute and extended daily substitute appointments. This is a request to ratify and approve the provisional employment of the personnel as listed. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.05, approval of co-curricular appointments. This is a request to ratify or approve the employment of the listed personnel for co-curricular appointments. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Westfall seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.06 is the approval of 2025-26 department chairs. There's a request to approve department chairs as listed. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
I second.
Mrs. Westfall seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.07, the approval of mentors. This is a request to approve the appointment of mentors as listed. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Oh, I do have a question.
Yep, go
Isn't
ahead.
this the person who just resigned?
It is, this is for the first semester.
Oh, okay. Oh, so we're just updating the amount.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing no other, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Item 7.08, the approval of 2025-26 winter coaches. This is a request to approve the appointments of coaches as listed. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carry. All in, we did that already, right? Yes, okay. Seeing none, motion carries.
And finally, item 7.09, the acceptance of the superintendent's retirement notice. This is a request to approve the retirement of Dr. Barbara A. Russell, District Superintendent, as of June 30th, 2026. The recommended action is a motion to approve, and with gratitude for your years of service and best wishes for the future, I will make that motion.
Dr. Weston motions. If we never second, it just won't happen then. Is there a second?
Unfortunately, I'll second it.
Mr. Liggett seconds. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
What happens if we all vote no?
Yeah, abstain. We all abstain. Nine abstention, Mrs. Reaper. Does anyone have any comments or other comments or questions in all
Dr.
seriousness?
Russell, you sure?
Yeah.
Are you just checking, just?
Going once.
Sure.
Okay. All in favor?
Wait a minute, are you really?
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you, Dr. Russell.
Make sure you grab a cookie on your way.
Yeah, you get 2 cookies, but we'll wait till June. Very
All
good.
right. And that concludes section 7.
Dr. Weston, thank you so much. All right, Ms. Bridie, your very first section, support personnel, section 8.
And I'll just start by saying I have a phobia of the microphone, so.
Okay, no worries, pretend it's not there.
Okay. Section 8 is support personnel. 8.01 is a motion to, approve the retirement. Oh, I'm on the, I didn't click down, sorry. 8.01 is a motion to accept resignations and retirements as noted. The recommended action is to accept it, and I so move.
Okay, Ms. Bridie motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconds. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
All right. 8.02 is a motion to approve leaves of absence as listed. The recommended action is to approve, and I so move.
Ms. Bridie motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Liggett seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Against? Motion carries.
8.03 is a motion to approve support appointments. The request to ratify and approve provisional employment of the personnel listed pending fulfillment of all statutory requirements. The recommended action is to approve, and I so move.
Motion by Ms. Bridie. Is there
I
a second?
second.
Ms. Westphal. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
8.04 is a motion to ratify Title I and Project Silver tutor appointments as listed. The recommended action is to ratify, and I so move.
Ms. Bridie motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Weston seconds. All in favor? Oh, sorry, comments or questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Against? Motion carries.
And then 8.05 is a motion to approve substitute rates, which are listed. The recommended action is to approve the substitute rates, and I so move.
Ms. Bridie motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Williams seconds. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. And that ends your section. Thank you. Good work. Okay, Section 9, Governance. Mrs. Lofton.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Section 9.01, we have a request for approval to hold a second reading and adopt the following policies. They are all listed here, and I so move.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Lofton, a second by Mr. Liggett. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. And that ends Mrs. Lofton's, and that ends my section. Okay, excellent. Section 10, closing items. 10.01, again, we open the floor for the audience to make a comment on any topic for a duration of 3 minutes. Please state your name and municipality, and I open the floor. Seeing none. 10.02, comments from board members. I opened the table by asking Mrs. Reefer, I know that there was a lot of moving parts this evening. I just want to make sure that you don't need clarification on anything. You're good. Wonderful. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none. 10.03, notice of video disclaimer. 10.04, adjournment. We did not have executive session, and I will see everyone at the.
January 7th.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Tonight, we did not have executive session. We did have an executive session on January 7th to discuss negotiations and personnel. So that's just closed. Thank you. And I'll see everybody at the end of the month for the data presentation. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. I adjourn.